When Lauren Hayes, an elite black CIA operative, drives through Arlington late at night, she expects nothing more than to head home. But two corrupt cops have other plans. What starts as a simple stop escalates into a wrongful arrest, a planted bag of drugs, and a setup meant to destroy her. They think she's powerless. They think they control the game. But Lauren isn't just any target. And with one signal, she sets something in motion that will bring an entire department to its knees. Before the truth is revealed, lives will be ruined, careers will collapse, and Lauren will have to decide just how far she's willing to go to expose the rot beneath the badge. This isn't just about one arrest, it's about justice. And justice is coming. Stay until the end to see how deep the corruption runs, and just how far Lauren will go to bring them down. And if you love stories of power, justice, and unexpected twists, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss what happens next. How do you trap a predator who thinks he's the hunter? Lauren Hayes kept her hand steady on the wheel of her black SUV as she drove through the quiet streets of Arlington, Virginia. She wasn't just another late-night driver. She was the bait in a carefully laid trap. The mission had been weeks in the making. But tonight, everything was set in motion. A flicker of blue and red lights in her rearview mirror signaled the beginning of the end. She pulled over calmly, her every movement measured. Lauren had played this scenario out in her head 100 times. She knew what was coming, and more importantly, how to respond. Two officers stepped out of the squad car. Officer Ethan Cole, the tall one with a permanent smirk, led the way. His partner, Jacob Foster, was stockier, meaner, and a little too eager for trouble. These weren't just corrupt cops. They were executioners in uniform, men who had planted evidence, destroyed lives, and walked away without consequences. Until now. Cole leaned down, shining a flashlight into her car. "Evening, ma'am. You know why we pulled you over?" Lauren met his gaze through the harsh beam of light. "I have a feeling you're about to tell me." Cole smirked. "Failed to stop at the intersection back there." She knew it was a lie. The stop sign didn't exist. "License and registration," he said, his tone shifting just slightly. It wasn't a request. It was a script. She handed over the documents without hesitation. As he examined them, Foster walked toward the back of her SUV. Lauren heard the click of the trunk. Then, Foster's voice rang out, thick with fake surprise. Well, what do we have here?" She turned her head slightly, catching sight of the small, unmarked bag Foster had discovered, planted seconds ago. A textbook frame job. Cole leaned in closer. "Looks like you've got yourself a problem, ma'am." Lauren exhaled slowly. "That's one way to look at it." "Step out of the vehicle." She did. She let them cuff her. She let them think they had won. Because the moment Cole snapped the metal bracelets around her wrists, he had unknowingly sealed his fate. As they drove toward the station, she gazed out the window, her mind working fast. The evidence against them was already in motion. The only question was, how far would they fall before they realized the game had changed? In the dimly lit break room of the Arlington Police Department, Cole and Foster laughed over steaming cups of coffee, bragging about their latest bust. They had done this before, too many times to count. Another face in the system, another life ruined. No one would question it. No one ever did. But across the station, young Officer James Keller sat at his desk, staring at the arrest report. Something didn't sit right. The whole thing felt too clean, too rehearsed. Keller wasn't a hero. He wasn't looking for trouble. But as his eyes darted toward the holding cell monitor, where Lauren sat unnervingly calm, he felt something in his gut tighten. What if this time they had made a mistake? Lauren sat on the cold metal bench of her cell, waiting, listening. The timing was everything. Somewhere in the city, a silent beacon pulsed from the tiny tracker hidden in the hem of her jacket. The signal had been sent. A black sedan rolled to a stop outside a nondescript office building. Inside, a phone buzzed softly. A man in a suit picked it up. His voice was calm. Signal received. He turned to his team. It's time. Lauren allowed herself the faintest smile. The storm was coming, and Cole and Foster had no idea they were standing in the eye of it. Lauren Hayes sat in a cold holding cell, her hands resting lightly on her lap. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting sharp shadows against the concrete walls. From the corner of her eye, she saw Officer Ethan Cole and Officer Jacob Foster standing near the station's break room, laughing over steaming mugs of coffee. They hadn't even bothered to lower their voices. "She thinks she's special," Foster sneered, shaking his head. "Bet she'll start begging for a deal by morning." Cole smirked. "They always do." Lauren barely reacted. Let them enjoy their victory while they can. They had no idea they'd walked right into her trap. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on her breathing, waiting. She knew her signal had been received. Somewhere out there, the wheels were already in motion. At the front desk, Officer Ryan Calloway frowned at his screen. He was young, only 6 months into the force, but he knew something felt off about this arrest. Lauren Hayes' file was too clean. No criminal record. No history of drug involvement. Her employment was vague, independent consultant, but there was an odd gap in her work history. And then there was the bag of drugs. It had been too perfectly placed, sitting right near the edge of her trunk, as if someone wanted it to be found. Ryan's gut twisted. He hesitated before clicking into the department's internal case files. He knew the unspoken rule: you don't question senior officers. But something about this case wasn't right. As he scrolled through past reports, a pattern began to emerge. Too many cases with similar circumstances, minor traffic stops escalating into drug busts. The same officers' names kept appearing. Ethan Cole, Jacob Foster. Ryan swallowed hard. They'd been doing this for years. Inside the interrogation room, Lauren finally moved. A slight shift in her posture. A deliberate tilt of her head. Officer Foster stepped in, the same smug grin on his face. "Sleep well, sweetheart?" Lauren's lips curled into a faint smirk. "I don't sleep much." Foster chuckled. "That's gonna change. See, your bail hearing's later today, but between you and me, judges around here don't go easy on drug dealers." Lauren studied him. His overconfidence was his weakness. "Good to know," she said simply. Foster's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. He cleared his throat and stepped back. "Enjoy your breakfast," he muttered before walking out. Lauren leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. He had no idea what was coming. At the same time, miles away, a secure phone line buzzed softly inside an unmarked black sedan. A man in a tailored suit picked it up, his voice calm. "Signal received." The agent beside him nodded. Lauren confirmed, "Yes, she's inside the Arlington station." The team leader glanced at the live surveillance feed on a laptop screen, a real-time hack of the police station's security cameras. They saw Lauren in her cell, calm as ever. The agent checked his watch. "ETA on extraction?" The team leader's expression was unreadable. "We wait for her signal. She'll know when to pull the trigger." Back in the police station, Ryan Calloway felt his pulse quicken. He had seen enough. Heart pounding, he opened a secure email channel. His fingers trembled slightly as he typed. "To whom it may concern, there's something wrong with this station. I don't know who else to turn to. Please help." He attached the case files, the patterns, and the evidence. Then he hit send. Ryan exhaled sharply, his chest tight. He had just crossed a line, one that could cost him his job, or worse. But deep down, he knew he'd done the right thing. What he didn't know was that his email had been intercepted before it even reached its intended recipient. A different agency had picked it up, and now the storm was truly coming. The Arlington police station pulsed with its usual rhythm, officers chatting, paperwork shuffling, the occasional crackle of a radio. To the untrained eye, everything appeared normal. But Lauren Hayes knew better. The storm had already begun. She sat in her cell, unmoving, watching, waiting. The signal had been sent. Now it was about timing. Officer Ryan Calloway's heart pounded. The email was sent. He had done it. But now doubt gnawed at him. Had he made a mistake? What if no one believed him? What if Cole and Foster somehow found out? He glanced toward the break room, where Ethan Cole and Jacob Foster still lingered, completely at ease. They didn't look worried. They should be. Inside the station's IT room, a low hum filled the space as a row of monitors blinked to life. A system technician, Adam Grayson, frowned as he noticed anomalies in the network traffic. An unauthorized access point had triggered the system. Someone was watching. He clicked a few keys, tracing the source, a live data poll. The station's security feeds were being accessed remotely. Shit, he muttered. Adam picked up his phone, dialed a number. Sir, we have a problem. Lauren shifted slightly, catching movement in the hallway. Ryan Calloway was pacing. He had that look, the same one she'd seen in Rookies before. Doubt. Conflict. She let her gaze settle on him until, finally, their eyes met. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, he stepped toward the holding cell. Miss Hayes, he said quietly. Lauren leaned forward. Yes. Ryan exhaled sharply. Did you really consent to that search? A slight smile touched Lauren's lips. What do you think? Ryan's throat tightened. She hadn't. He knew it. Before he could speak, Foster's voice boomed from behind him. Hey, Calloway, what the hell are you doing? Ryan stiffened. He turned, his pulse spiking as he saw Foster approaching, his smirk just a little too casual. Just checking some details, Ryan muttered. Foster clapped a hand on his shoulder, too firm. Don't overthink it, kid. Ryan forced a nod. Yet, of course. He turned away, but Lauren saw it, the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. She had planted the seed. Now she had to let it grow. Across town, in a secure operations room, Agent Daniel Price watched the live feed from Arlington PD. Calloway's getting nervous, one of the operatives noted. Price's expression remained unreadable. Good. He'll either break under pressure or start asking the right questions. The agent beside him adjusted his earpiece. What's the move? Price exhaled, his fingers tapping against the desk. We wait for confirmation. Back at the station, Foster and Cole sat in the break room, sipping their coffee, seemingly unconcerned. But underneath the surface, cracks were forming. You notice, Calloway? Cole muttered, lowering his voice. Foster scoffed. He's a rookie. Even if he has doubts, what's he gonna do? Cole wasn't convinced. He had been in the game long enough to recognize a problem before it exploded. I don't like it, he admitted. We should cover our bases. Foster leaned back. Relax. No one's coming to save her. But just as the words left his mouth, the station's front doors swung open, and everything changed. The front doors of the Arlington police station swung open, letting in a gust of cold air. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The usual background chatter dimmed as officers instinctively glanced up. 3 men in dark suits walked in. Their movements were calm, controlled, and deliberate, the kind that made seasoned officers sit up straighter. Agent Daniel Price led the way. His gray eyes swept the room, assessing. Behind him, 2 other FBI agents flanked his sides, their faces unreadable. At the front desk, Sergeant Bill Dawson, a veteran with 20 years on the force, frowned as he stood to greet them. Can I help you, gentlemen? Dawson asked, his voice wary. Price pulled out his badge. FBI, we need access to your records and holding cells. Immediately. Silence. The room tensed. Officers exchanged uncertain glances. No one moved. Federal jurisdiction? Dawson asked, eyes narrowing. Since when? Since we started investigating systemic corruption within this department, Price replied coolly. A ripple of unease spread through the room. Cole and Foster, still sitting in the break room, went rigid. Shit, Foster muttered under his breath. Cole's jaw tightened. He had seen this before. The feds didn't just show up without cause. They had something. In her holding cell, Lauren Hayes smiled faintly. Right on time. She shifted slightly, watching through the bars as an officer rushed toward the front desk, whispering something to Dawson. The sergeant's face darkened. Who authorized this? Price didn't blink. I don't need authorization. Lauren saw Dawson grit his teeth. He was stalling. The next few minutes would determine everything. Ryan Calloway felt his pulse skyrocket. FBI? He glanced toward Foster and Cole. They weren't laughing anymore. They were staring at each other, exchanging unspoken messages. Then Cole stood up. Foster followed. And that's when Ryan realized something chilling. They weren't waiting to see what happened. They were about to cover their tracks. Panic kicked in. Ryan turned, walking swiftly toward his desk. He opened his computer, pulling up the email he had sent. It was still in his outbox. He clicked on it. Nothing. His stomach dropped. His email had been intercepted. Someone else had gotten to it first. And that meant a hand clamped down on his shoulder. Ryan flinched. Cole loomed over him, his expression dark and unreadable. "You been busy, kid?" Cole asked, voice low. Ryan forced a swallow. "Just doing my job." Cole held his gaze for a long moment. Then he smiled. "That's good," he murmured. "Make sure it stays that way." Ryan nodded stiffly. But inside, his heart pounded. He had made a mistake. He should have sent that email from somewhere else. Now they knew. Back at the front desk, Dawson squared his shoulders. "I can't authorize access without direct approval from the chief," he said. "And he's not here." Price gave a humorless smile. "I wasn't asking for permission." He gestured to one of his agents, who immediately stepped forward and slid a folder onto the counter. "This is a federal warrant for full access to all records and detainees, effective immediately," Price said flatly. "Your chief will be briefed once we're done." Dawson hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. That was enough. Price's expression turned cold. "Sergeant Dawson, if you interfere, I will consider you an obstruction to a federal investigation. And you know what that means." Dawson's face darkened, but he said nothing. The standoff lasted a few more heartbeats. Then, grudgingly, he turned to the officer behind the desk. "Let them through," Dawson muttered. Price didn't acknowledge the victory. He simply nodded to his agents, and they moved. One agent strode toward the records room. The other, straight to the holding cells. Lauren stood as the lock buzzed open. The door swung outward. A dark-suited agent stepped in. His voice was cool and professional. "Miss Hayes," he said, "you're free to go." Lauren met his gaze, expression calm. She stepped out of the cell without hesitation. As she walked past Ryan Calloway's desk, their eyes met. Ryan opened his mouth, but no words came. Lauren gave him the smallest nod. Then, without another glance, she walked toward the front doors. Behind her, the station descended into chaos. Cole and Foster had vanished. And Ryan? He realized in that moment that this wasn't over. It was just beginning. Lauren Hayes stepped out into the crisp morning air, her posture calm, controlled and unshaken. The moment she left the Arlington police station, she ceased to be a prisoner. Behind her, the station was in chaos. FBI agents moved swiftly, securing evidence and questioning officers. The ones who had nothing to hide looked confused, worried. The ones with secrets? They avoided eye contact, shifted nervously. And two of them? They were gone. Ethan Cole and Jacob Foster had disappeared. Lauren expected this. She had counted on it. Inside the bullpen, Ryan Calloway's pulse pounded in his ears. He had barely processed what had happened. Lauren Hayes had walked out a free woman. Cole and Foster vanished. His stomach twisted. This wasn't just bad, this was dangerous. A sharp voice cut through the room. "Where the hell are Cole and Foster?" Ryan turned to see Sergeant Bill Dawson, his face red with barely contained anger. A few officers shifted uncomfortably. No one had an answer, because no one had seen them leave. Dawson exhaled sharply, then turned to one of the FBI agents. "Are they suspects now?" Agent Daniel Price barely looked at him. "They've been suspects from the beginning." He turned toward the agent at the records desk. "Trace their last known locations. Now." Ryan's hands curled into fists. They knew. Cole and Foster had figured out someone had turned on them, and they had run. His gut twisted. They probably thought it was Lauren. But what if they figured out the truth? What if they realized it was him? Miles away, in a cheap motel room on the outskirts of town, Ethan Cole gripped the edge of a wooden desk, jaw clenched. A burner phone lay in front of him, screen glowing. Across the room, Jacob Foster paced furiously, his nerves unraveling by the second. "This is bad," Foster muttered. "This is really, really bad." Cole shot him a look. "Shut up." Foster didn't. "You saw the way the feds walked in. They knew Ethan. They had a damn warrant." Cole's grip tightened. He knew. That wasn't just bad luck. Someone had given them exactly what they needed. Foster stopped pacing. His expression darkened. "You think it was Hayes?" Cole didn't answer immediately. That was the obvious conclusion. But something nagged at him. Lauren Hayes had been too calm in that cell. Almost like she had been waiting for something. "No," Cole said slowly. Foster frowned. "Then who?" Cole picked up the burner phone, his mind racing. If Hayes wasn't the one who tipped him off, then it was someone inside the station. Someone stupid enough to think they could get away with it. He dialed a number. The call rang once, then twice. Then someone picked up. Cole's voice dropped into a low growl. "I know what you did." Ryan Calloway's stomach twisted when his phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, heart hammering against his ribs. Unknown number. His mouth went dry. Slowly he answered. "Hello." A pause. Then, "You really think you're some kind of hero, Calloway?" His blood ran cold. "Cole." Ryan couldn't breathe. He forced himself to speak. "Shut up," Cole snapped. "You listen to me and you listen good." Ryan gripped his desk, struggling to steady his voice. "I don't know what you're talking about." Cole laughed softly. "Cute." Ryan heard Foster's voice in the background, low and angry. "Just say the word, Ethan." A deep, gnawing fear settled in Ryan's gut. Cole wasn't threatening to expose him. He was deciding whether or not to kill him. Lauren sat in the back of a sleek black SUV, watching the Arlington skyline fade into the distance. Agent Price sat beside her, flipping through a file. "Cole and Foster are on the run," he muttered. "Exactly like you said they would be." Lauren leaned back, crossing her legs. "They always run. They think they're in control." Price glanced at her. "And are they?" Lauren's lips curved slightly. "No," she said. "They're about to learn what it feels like to be hunted." Ryan Calloway's grip tightened around his phone. Ethan Cole's voice oozed with quiet menace on the other end. "You thought you were smart, huh, rookie?" Ryan swallowed hard, forcing himself to sound steady. "I don't know what you're talking about." A low chuckle from Cole. "Sure you do." A pause. Then Jacob Foster's voice cut in, rough and seething. "You think the feds are going to protect you? You think you can just rat us out and walk away?" Ryan's pulse thundered. He glanced around the station. No one was paying attention to him. No one knew what was happening. He needed to get to Agent Price. Needed to warn him. "I didn't." Cole's voice turned sharp. "Shut up, Calloway. Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna walk out of that station nice and quiet. No feds, no backup. Just you. We'll talk. Face to face." Ryan's stomach twisted. If he went out there alone, he wouldn't be coming back. He had to stall. I can't just walk out right now. FBI is still here." Silence. Then Cole let out a mock sigh. "See? That sounds like a problem. And I hate problems. A sudden noise in the background. A muffled cry. Ryan's blood turned to ice. Cole's voice darkened. You recognize that kid? Ryan did. It was his younger sister, Emily. His hands started shaking. You son of a... Careful, Cole warned. You want her back in one piece, you listen? You walk out of there alone in the next 15 minutes. The line went dead. Ryan couldn't breathe. They had his sister. His mind raced. He couldn't just leave. But if he waited too long, Emily, no. He had to think fast. Lauren Hayes watched Agent Price scan through the department's files, his expression impassive. The case is airtight, he muttered. With Cole and Foster gone, the department's forced into damage control. Everyone scrambling. Lauren leaned back. Good. Keep the pressure on. Price glanced at her. We need to find them before they go underground. Lauren's phone buzzed. She looked down. A restricted number. Her instincts flared. She answered. Yeah. A ragged, desperate voice came through. Lauren, it's Calloway. They took my sister. Lauren's entire demeanor shifted. Cold. Sharp. Focused. Where are you now? I'm still inside the station, Ryan choked out. They want me to go outside alone. Lauren didn't hesitate. Listen carefully, she said. You're not going anywhere. But... No, she cut him off. If you step out that door, you're dead. A heavy silence. Ryan exhaled shakily. Then what do I do? Lauren's mind worked fast. Cole and Foster had just made a mistake. A big one. She turned to Price. They took Calloway's sister. Price's eyes narrowed. Then we have leverage. Lauren nodded. And we use it. She turned her attention back to Ryan. Tell them you're coming, she said. Buy us time. Ryan hesitated. And then? Lauren's smile was razor sharp. Then we turn the hunters into the hunted. Foster paced inside the motel room, gun in hand. She's just a kid, he muttered, looking at Emily Calloway, who sat tied to a chair, her eyes wide with fear. We don't need to do this. Cole shot him a look. You want to stay out of prison? Foster hesitated. Cole smirked. Then quit whining. His burner phone buzzed. A message from Calloway. I'm coming. Cole's grin widened. That's a good boy. Foster exhaled. And after that, Cole's smile darkened. We clean up loose ends. Ryan Calloway wiped the sweat from his palms as he stared at his phone. His last message to Ethan Cole had been sent, I'm coming. His hands trembled. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But his sister was out there, held by two men who had already proven they had no limits. He turned toward Lauren Hayes, his only lifeline in this nightmare. She was already moving, pulling a sleek earpiece from her pocket and handing it to him. Put this on. Ryan obeyed, sliding the device into his ear. What's the plan? Lauren's expression remained cool and razor sharp. You're going to meet them, but not alone. Agent Daniel Price stepped forward, holding up a tablet displaying a live satellite feed. We tracked Cole's burner phone to a motel off Route 19. We have a perimeter set, but we can't move until we're sure of Emily's location. Ryan's stomach twisted. So I really have to go inside? Lauren nodded. You'll stall them, keep them talking. We'll handle the rest. It was a suicide mission. He knew it, but he had no choice. Emily's life was on the line. Ryan inhaled shakily. Let's do it. Motel off Route 19. 20 minutes later, Ethan Cole stood near the window, watching the parking lot. The gun tucked into his waistband felt like an anchor, reassuring, solid. Jacob Foster sat on the bed, still gripping his own weapon, but his nerves were unraveling. I don't like this, man. What if the kid brings the feds? Cole snorted. Then he dies right alongside his sister. Foster's jaw tightened. We don't need to hurt the girl. We could still get out of this. Cole rounded on him, his voice sharp. Get out? You think we get to walk away from this? The only way we survive is if we clean up every loose end. Foster clenched his jaw, but said nothing. Then outside, a car pulled into the lot. Ryan Calloway stepped out, his movements slow, cautious. Cole grinned. Right on time. He gestured to Foster. Get the girl. Let's give our rookie a proper welcome. Inside Ryan's earpiece, Lauren's voice was steady. Keep your hands visible. Let them think you're scared. Ryan swallowed. He didn't need to act. He was terrified. Cole and Foster met him at the door, their eyes scanning him like wolves sizing up prey. Brave of you, Calloway, Cole drawled, stepping forward. Or maybe just stupid. Ryan kept his expression blank. Where's my sister? Foster dragged Emily into the room, her hands still tied, a gag over her mouth. Her eyes widened when she saw Ryan. The relief that washed over him was brief. Cole pressed a gun to her head. Ryan's heart stopped. Here's how this works, Cole said, voice deathly calm. You're going to tell us exactly how much the feds know, who's involved, what they have on us. Ryan forced himself to breathe. He had to stall. All right, he said. I'll talk. Cole smirked. Good boy. 1 block away, Lauren and Price sat in the back of an unmarked FBI SUV, watching the motel on their surveillance monitors. Lauren's voice came through Ryan's earpiece. Buy us 2 more minutes. Ryan's stomach clenched. He needed to push Cole, make him feel like he was still in control. He met the older cop's gaze. The FBI has a file on you. Cole's smirk faltered. Ryan nodded. They know about Arlington PD, about all the arrests you set up. They're linking it back to higher-ups. That's why they were at the station. Foster's face went pale. Cole, however, wasn't convinced. He narrowed his eyes. Nice try, kid. You wouldn't know half of that. Ryan needed to double down. They have surveillance, he said quickly. A recording. Your voices. Everything you said at the station, it's all on tape. For the first time, doubt flickered in Cole's eyes. That was all Ryan needed. Lauren's voice clicked into his earpiece. Move. Now. The door exploded inward as a flashbang detonated, filling the room with blinding light and deafening noise. Cole shouted in rage, shielding his eyes. Ryan lunged forward, grabbing Emily and shoving her behind him. FBI agents stormed in, weapons drawn. Drop your weapons. Foster froze, his gun shaking in his grip. Cole, however, didn't hesitate. He fired. A bullet whizzed past Ryan's head, missing by inches. Before Cole could fire again, Lauren was on him. She tackled him hard, slamming him against the floor, wrenching the gun from his hand. Cole struggled, but Lauren was stronger. She twisted his arm, and a sickening pop echoed through the room as his shoulder dislocated. Cole screamed in agony. Lauren leaned down, her voice icy cold. You lose. Foster dropped his gun without a fight. He collapsed against the bed, face pale with terror. Emily was sobbing, still shaking as Ryan untied her wrists. It's over, Ryan whispered to her. You're safe. FBI agents swarmed the room, restraining both men. Cole lay on the floor, groaning, his face twisted in pain. Agent Price knelt beside him, flipping open a thick folder. You should have run faster, Price murmured, dropping the file onto Cole's chest. Cole looked down at it, his entire career, his crimes, his downfall laid out in black and white. His hands clenched into fists. Lauren crouched beside him. You thought you were the hunter, she said softly. Her gaze turned cold. But you were prey the entire time. Cole's breathing was ragged. He clenched his teeth. And for the first time in his life, he knew he had lost. The air in the motel room was thick with tension. Even with Cole and Foster restrained, the weight of what had just happened still hung in the air. Lauren Hayes straightened, rolling her shoulders as she stepped back from Cole. He was done. Broken, humiliated. His confidence, the smirk, the arrogance was gone. FBI agents moved quickly, securing the scene. Foster sat slumped on the bed, his hands cuffed behind his back, staring at the floor like a man waiting for his fate to be sealed. But Cole was still seething. His chest rose and fell heavily, sweat dripping down his brow as he tried to process his failure. Lauren knelt beside him again, her voice cool. "Tell me, Cole, was it worth it?" He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Lauren's gaze didn't waver. "You spent years thinking you were untouchable, framing people, ruining lives. You thought you could keep walking away, didn't you?" Cole's jaw clenched, but he remained silent. Lauren studied him. This was the moment, the point where men like Cole either cracked completely or doubled down in denial. She knew which way he would go. He exhaled sharply, then let out a low, bitter chuckle. "Nice speech," he muttered. "You think you've won?" Lauren didn't blink. "Haven't I?" Cole lifted his head slowly and smiled. "You don't get it," he said. "I'm not the only one." Lauren's eyes narrowed. Cole leaned in slightly, his voice almost amused. "You think this ends with me? With Foster?" His lips curled into something resembling a smirk. "You're wrong." Lauren heard the shift in his tone. This wasn't bluster. It wasn't defiance. It was something else entirely. Agent Price stepped forward, cutting through the tension. "Take them in." Two agents lifted Cole to his feet, but he didn't fight. He let them pull him toward the door, but just before he was dragged out, he glanced back at Lauren. "See you soon, Hayes." Lauren watched him go, her mind already racing. Cole had lost. So why did it feel like he still thought he had the upper hand? Back at the Arlington police station, chaos had erupted. Word had spread fast. Ethan Cole and Jacob Foster were in federal custody, charged with multiple counts of falsifying evidence, abuse of power, and conspiracy. And now, people were running scared. Sergeant Bill Dawson sat at his desk, rubbing his temples as officers murmured. Around him, "This is bad," one officer muttered. "We're going to be investigated next," another said. Dawson's stomach twisted. Because they were right. This wasn't just about Cole and Foster anymore. This was about the entire department. And then, the doors swung open again. Agent Daniel Price walked in, flanked by two agents. He wasn't smiling. Dawson slowly stood, masking his nerves. More federal interference? Price didn't waste time. He dropped a thick file onto Dawson's desk. "Records," Price said flatly. "Past cases. Patterns. Years of corruption starting from Cole and Foster. But it doesn't stop there." Dawson's mouth went dry as he flipped through the pages. Files of officers planting evidence, covering for each other, targeting minorities, destroying reports. And his name? It was in there, too. Dawson's throat tightened. "I don't know what you think you have." Price cut him off. "We have everything." Dawson felt the walls closing in. One of the officers, a younger cop, probably smart enough to see the writing on the wall, took a step back. "I want a lawyer." Price's expression didn't change. "Smartest thing you've said today." Dawson's hand shook slightly as he reached for his desk phone, because he knew this was the end. Across town, in an FBI black site, Cole sat in an interrogation room, handcuffed to the table. Lauren Hayes walked in, dropping a file in front of him. "You said this doesn't end with you," she said, sitting across from him. "Then let's talk." Cole leaned back, smirking slightly. "I want a deal." Lauren raised an eyebrow. "You're in no position to negotiate." Cole exhaled, tapping his fingers against the metal table. "We both know what happens next," he said. "Your bosses? They'll want names. They'll want to dig deeper." Lauren didn't deny it. Cole shrugged. "Fine. I'll give them something." Lauren watched him carefully. "And in return?" Cole grinned. "I don't rot in a cage for the rest of my life." Lauren sat back. "You think selling out your friends is going to save you?" Cole's smile didn't fade. "Depends on how much you want to burn the whole house down." Lauren held his gaze, because, deep down, she knew Cole was right. This was bigger than him. The real war was just beginning. Lauren Hayes sat across from Ethan Cole in the sterile, windowless FBI interrogation room. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, casting harsh shadows over his bruised face. He looked far from the untouchable predator he had once believed himself to be. His dislocated shoulder left him slumped slightly to one side, but there was still a glint in his eye, a man who believed he still had a card to play. Lauren's fingers tapped lightly against the folder in front of her. Inside were names, connections, proof that Cole wasn't the only one. Cole smirked. "So, what's the plan, Hayes? You think you scare me?" Lauren tilted her head. "No, I think prison does." His smirk wavered, but only for a second. "I want a deal." Lauren leaned forward. "You framed innocent people. You planted evidence. You kidnapped a child. You almost got a federal agent killed." Her voice never rose, never wavered. "You think you get to negotiate?" Cole exhaled sharply, leaning back against the cold metal chair. "You want to take down the whole operation, don't you?" Lauren didn't answer, but she didn't have to. Cole grinned. He had her. "I talk, I get protection," he said. "Somewhere far. Witness relocation. New identity. No prison." Lauren laughed softly, shaking her head. "You think you deserve to walk away?" Cole's grin widened. "You don't have a choice, sweetheart." Lauren's eyes darkened. "Neither do you." She slid a photo across the table. Cole's smirk vanished, because staring back at him was a picture of the man who had just been arrested at Arlington PD, Sergeant Bill Dawson. Lauren's voice was calm, but her words were razor-sharp. "Your friends are already turning on you." Cole's jaw clenched. Lauren leaned in. "They're cutting deals while you sit here thinking you're the smartest guy in the room." She tapped the photo. Dawson gave up everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. Cole's fingers curled into fists. "You're not special, Cole. You're expendable." Cole exhaled, his bravado crumbling. He had always controlled the game, but now, for the first time, he was losing. Lauren stood. "I'll let you think about how much you want to rot in a cage." She turned toward the door, ready to leave. Then, wait. Lauren smiled to herself before turning back. Cole's shoulders slumped slightly. "I'll talk." Lauren sat back down. "Start from the beginning." Back at the Arlington police station, Agent Daniel Price stood in front of the remaining officers. Some of them were sweating. Others tried to act casual, but they all knew what was coming. Price held up a list of names. "Internal Affairs and the FBI are taking over this department. Effective immediately." Silence. "You have two choices," Price continued. "Cooperate, and maybe you keep your badge." He let the second option hang in the air. Everyone knew what it was. Sergeant Dawson had already flipped, and now Cole was giving them the rest. One by one, officers began to shift nervously. And then, "I want a lawyer." Price grinned, because the moment one person broke, the rest would follow. The house of cards was falling fast. At an undisclosed FBI safe house, Ryan Calloway sat with his sister Emily. She was still shaken but safe. "Are they going to prison?" Emily asked, her voice small. Ryan swallowed. "Yeah, they are." He hoped it was true. Emily hesitated. "Are you okay?" Ryan let out a small breath. He had spent months looking up to men like Cole and Foster, believing in the brotherhood of the badge. Now he knew better. He met his sister's gaze. "I am now." And for the first time he meant it. The hallway of the federal courthouse echoed with the sound of rushing footsteps. Lauren Hayes moved swiftly, her senses razor-sharp. Something was wrong. Ethan Cole was missing. The man who had spent his career framing the innocent had just slipped through federal custody, and Lauren knew this wasn't an escape. It was a trap. Her phone buzzed. Agent Daniel Price's voice was urgent. "We have a situation." Lauren turned a corner, pushing past stunned court officials. "Tell me." Price exhaled sharply. "Cole isn't running. He's hunting." Lauren's stomach twisted. His target? Price continued. Ryan Calloway. 1 hour earlier, federal holding facility, the transfer was supposed to be routine. Ethan Cole and Jacob Foster were scheduled for sentencing, their final steps toward a lifetime behind bars. The armed marshals never saw it coming. 2 disguised assailants, dirty cops from Cole's network, men who still believed in protecting their own, ambushed the convoy, gunning down both officers before they had time to react. Cole escaped into the city, leaving Foster behind in a pool of his own blood. He had one goal: take out the man who betrayed them. Ryan Calloway. Present. Ryan Calloway's apartment. Ryan had just set his badge down on the kitchen counter when the knock came. It was soft. Too soft. His pulse spiked. Through the peephole, nothing. The hallway was empty. Ryan exhaled, backing away slowly, just as the door exploded inward. A gunshot tore through the air, missing him by inches. He dived behind the counter, heart racing. Another shot. Then footsteps. A shadow moved inside. Deliberate. Controlled. Haunting. Ryan didn't need to see his face to know who it was. Ethan Cole. Should have stayed quiet, kid. Cole's voice was low, dangerous. Ryan's hand fumbled for his service weapon, his mind racing. He was outgunned, outmatched, and Cole wasn't here to talk. Then another explosion of gunfire. But this time it wasn't from Cole. The front door shattered inward again, and Lauren Hayes stormed through, gun raised. "Drop it, Cole," she shouted. Cole whirled, firing 2 rounds at the entrance. Lauren rolled behind the couch, dodging just in time. Ryan took his chance. He grabbed his gun and fired. The bullet slammed into Cole's shoulder. The corrupt cop staggered, growling in pain, but still didn't drop his weapon. He wasn't done yet. Cole lunged, grabbing Ryan, pressing the barrel of his gun against his head. Lauren froze. For the first time, Cole had the upper hand. "You shoot, he dies," Cole sneered. Blood dripped from his wounded shoulder, but his grip was steady. Lauren's heartbeat pounded. Cole was cornered. He knew it, and that made him more dangerous than ever. "You think taking him out will fix this?" Lauren's voice was calm, measured. Cole laughed coldly. "I don't care about fixing anything. I just want to watch one of you die." Ryan struggled against his grip, but the gun pressed harder against his skull. Lauren's mind raced. One wrong move, and this ended in blood. Then Ryan moved first. He stomped on Cole's foot, twisted hard, and shoved back. The gun fired, but the shot went wide. Lauren didn't hesitate. She pulled the trigger. 1, 2, 3 rounds. Cole staggered backward, a look of pure shock flashing across his face. His body hit the floor. Blood pooled beneath him. His gun clattered onto the tile. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, Cole let out a ragged, broken laugh. He lifted his shaking hand, staring at his own blood-covered fingers. "This isn't over," he whispered, before his eyes finally went still. Lauren let out a slow breath. Ryan collapsed onto the floor, chest heaving. For the first time since this all began, it was over. Epilogue. 1 week later, the Arlington Police Department was unrecognizable. What had once been a den of corruption was now under complete federal oversight. Dozens of officers had been arrested. More resigned in disgrace. The system was being rebuilt from the ground up. Lauren stood outside the precinct, watching as federal auditors carried out boxes of files. The house of corruption had fallen. Agent Price stepped beside her. "You did good, Hayes." Lauren smirked. "That a compliment, Price?" He shrugged. "Don't get used to it." Lauren turned toward Ryan, who stood at the edge of the street, staring at the badge he had just turned in. "Regretting it?" she asked. Ryan shook his head. "No, just figuring out what's next." Lauren crossed her arms. "Justice doesn't stop. You want to fight for it? There's always another battle." Ryan exhaled. "Yeah," he said, finally at peace. "I think I'm ready for it." Lauren smiled faintly. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. Her mission was complete. For now. But if there was one thing she knew, it was this: there would always be another fight. And when the time came, she'd be ready. If you loved this story, one of truth, power, and the fight for justice, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This may be the end of one battle, but the war for justice never stops.